Chairman, thank you.
I call the honourable member David Shearer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's a real pleasure to speak on this bill because, and particularly on the preamble, because I think this is the area of the bill where we can really pay our respects and our gratitude and some admiration to the Royal Society, because obviously it's the Royal Society Amendment Bill, but the Royal Society itself actually needs a mention in its own right. And Pete Hodgson just spoke then articulately and as usual knowledgeably about the Royal Society and what it does for New Zealand. It actually plays an extraordinary role. The fact that it's been in New Zealand and has been functioning in New Zealand since 1867 is one of the few institutions which have survived that length of time, but not only survived, Mr. Chair, but has grown both in stature and in its competence and its reach today, because the number of scientists that it draws in is in the tens of thousands. In fact, I have the figure here. The number of scientists who are represented by the Society are 20,000. 20,000 scientists, technologists, technicians, perhaps engineers as well. Engineers, I always see engineers in some ways, as Pete Hodgson was mentioning just now, as representing the bridge between science and its application in a commercial sense. And I think sometimes we don't perhaps make enough of our engineers in the way that we develop our products. We also don't make enough of them, Mr. Chair, in the way that we encourage students coming through school to take on a science, maths, and go towards that sort of engineering type of vocation, because that is the area where we will be able to earn value in New Zealand, and I don't think we can have enough engineers, whereas I think we have plenty of certainly accountants, lawyers, etc. Two engineering schools, and I think there's 8 law schools. And the Minister of Science, who was a lawyer, might be able to elucidate us on this. It's a curious coincidence, actually. But I just wonder whether we have our priorities around the right. So I just wanted to start on this bill, and as it was being laid out by both Grant Robertson and Pete Hodgson, this bill is really about expanding the remit of the Royal Society to include humanities, something which I hasten to say was somewhat controversial in some of our Select Committee meetings. And the chair of the Select Committee, Alan Peachy, is here. I think he did a very good job, as did my colleagues across on the other side of the House, actually. We engaged in this very constructively, and we did a pretty thorough job of questioning perhaps. Interrogating sounds a little bit too much like a light in your face and giving you the truth. But certainly questioning the people that came before us. And I think we took it quite seriously, some of their concerns that the work of the Royal Society and of science might be diminished in New Zealand as a result of the humanities being brought into this piece of legislation, as Grant Robertson was speaking of before. I think that is extraordinarily important, that we did give these people a really good hearing, and we actually asked as I remember, the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology, as it was then known, now is the Ministry of Science and Innovation. It's one of the most innovative things that the Minister on the other side of the House has done. I won't list the others, but not that I don't have time. It wouldn't take very much time to do that, but I will say that the word innovation, bringing the word innovation alongside science, is a good step. But I think that what we did when we brought the Ministry of Research, Science and Technology back before the committee, I think twice or perhaps 3 times, I stand corrected on that, to check up on some of the concerns that some of the Royal Society branches around the country had about their perception of dilution of the Royal Society by including Mr. Chair.
I call the honourable member David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologise. I was so getting carried away with it that I didn't even call. My heart's beating. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would like to just to reflect on the Royal Society itself, what it does, and I think to try and provide a context for this piece of legislation in this preamble, in the sense of the concerns that some people who are watching this may have about the feeling that we didn't do a good enough job in terms of reflecting on what the humanities, incorporating the humanities into the Royal Society might do. And I have to say that in some countries, particularly, for example, the UK, Australia, they do not take this particular pattern of doing things. They instead have separate societies, and the Royal Society jealously guards its sort of boundaries or its borders. I think in New Zealand, where we have obviously a smaller country, a smaller bunch of academics, although I mentioned 20,000, it's not exactly small, but nevertheless it's smaller, we have the ability with this piece of legislation to look a little laterally and understand how science and the associated humanities actually makes an impact on our society. And it's for that reason I think that we have the ability to be innovative within the Royal Society and the Royal Society itself. But just to reflect on, Mr. Chair, what the Royal Society has done and does. As I said, 1867, an extraordinarily long and proud history. But it also funds, it promotes science and technology in schools, in industry and in society. It administers several funds for science and technology. It publishes scientific journals. It offers advice and advocates for government. And I have to say, it also advocates for science with the opposition as well. I meet with the Royal Society frequently to hear their concerns and some of the areas that they would like to push in the area of science more generally. They even host a series of dinners here for MPs that are well attended to promote science within this House. So I think they do an extraordinarily good job in terms of promoting and supporting science in our community. I just wanted to just make an aside. They have not said this to me, but I would imagine that they are somewhat disappointed about the science advisors in the area of education being ripped out of schools and various advisory services that can provide teachers with up-to-date support in science. As I said before in the beginning of my address today, Mr. Chair, the idea of science and promoting science in schools has to be one of the most important things that we do. We are ranked in the PISA listings at number 7 in the world in terms of our science achievements in our schools. We, I think, face a sliding of that ranking as a result of the resources that have been pulled out of schools and from teachers in order to I guess save money, but it's an extraordinarily short-sighted policy to take, because at the end of the day it's not very much money for promoting something which is fundamentally important to our economy. Our economy is based on primary products, mainly based on science. Science applied to our primary products. It's what gives us the edge, and we need to be promoting our scientists more than in anything else. Pete Hodgson mentioned also about the restructuring of the science community that has happened over the last few years, and Simon Upton is a fellow of the Royal Society here. Well, I think the only MP or minister that was actually made a fellow, which I think tests to his interest and his passion for science that he showed when he's the Minister of Science. And Aaron, possibly Aaron. But the other aspect of this, Mr. Chair, is that restructuring what Simon Upton did, and he did it to a particular end. We've had a little bit of discussion about restructuring over the last few weeks.
I call the honourable member